Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 177. Final Mission.
Welcome into, man, I can't believe this, the very last episode of Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm Ken Ray.
And I'm John Champion. Wait, last episode?
Well, I assume so. My notes say Final Mission.
Oh, no, wait. I see what happened.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not our last show.
Okay.
We thought it was last week, and I can see how you could think that it would be this week. That's actually in the name of the episode, Final Mission.
Wow. That makes this cake kind of stupid, huh?
Cake is never stupid.
Sometimes, though, the cake is a lie. And that's for the video gamers out there. Hey, John's going to do a little trivia in a second because that is one of the things that John does. But before he does that, I'm going to do one of the things I do, and that is let you know how to get in touch with us. Mission Log Pod is the address to find us on Facebook, Skype, and Twitter. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, we would love to hear your voice. 323-522-5641 is the phone number to call. 323-522-5641. Our email address is missionlog@roddenberry.com. Our show website, including discovered documents and pictures and comments and all kinds of things, is missionlogpodcast.com. And please do remember, we may use your comments on an upcoming episode of Mission Log. You know, it's getting to be a running gag. I think really every episode from now on, because it won't get old over the next 11 to 13 years.
No.
You just start with, oh, wow, it's the last episode.
Yeah,
and then
the new series coming. I mean, that's
and then
perfect.
One day it will be the last episode, and nobody will believe it.
Right. We just won't say anything. We'll say, yeah, join us next week.
Yeah.
And not release the show. Yeah.
Which is actually, it'll be the first episode of the Moonlighting podcast.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot about that. How could I forget?
Something like that anyway. Yeah. Hey, you got a trivia thing to do?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I do. I still do that. Okay, today's episode, Final Mission, was written by Casey Arnold Ince. This is his only writing credit. Now, he created the premise of this story. His only other professional credit was working on the 1987 TV movie Daniel and the Towers, a movie about the Watts Towers, the artist who created them, and a boy he befriended. Now, the teleplay was by Casey Arnold Ince and Jerry Taylor, who we have mentioned. Jerry really did the lion's share of the work on scripting. In fact, she said she spent more time on this script than on any other for the season because of the importance of the character drama, as well as trying to get the B-plot up to a decent level. It was directed by Corey Allen, and we've definitely mentioned Corey Allen before. Not a frequent contributor, but we've already seen his work in Encounter at Farpoint and Home Soil. In addition to his long career as a TV director, he had small roles in a couple of great movies that I love, Night of the Hunter and Rebel Without a Cause. There are a couple of deleted scenes from Final Mission. You have Picard in his weakened state talking to Wesley about Jack Crusher. And you have an additional scene on board the Enterprise when the sensors actually locate the crashed shuttle, and then we pick up from there back to the scenes on the planet. Now, this episode was conceived as a way to have a fond and impactful farewell for Will Wheaton as Wesley Crusher. We have discussed how Will wanted to leave the show. Listen to our supplemental interview with him. This story was written in such a way to give him something to do, to make it have meaning, and also make sure that we know he's alive so he could return to Star Trek again without having to do time travel or something like that. The script was originally conceived for an ice planet, but the desert was an easier location to pull off, particularly if you're in Southern California. The location stuff was filmed at the El Mirage Dry Lake Bed. Now, let's talk about this place. It is northeast of L.A., not super close, but close enough, kind of near Edwards Air Force Base. It's actually a pretty active area. People will camp there. You can fly remote control or actual small aircraft and land them there. There's actually no speed limit either. So if you have a vehicle permit, knock yourself out. Scenes from Terminator 2, Buckaroo Banzai, There Will Be Blood, and so many more have also been shot there. Oh, and look at those beautiful Star Trek III phasers that Captain Durgo has on board his shuttle. Nice to see the reuse of some props there. Guest stars. We have Kim Hamilton as Sonji. Kim got her start in the early 1950s on TV. She appeared on The Twilight Zone, The Thin Man, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Leave It to Beaver, The Mod Squad, Kojak, and so much more, including stops at many of the major soap operas. She was married at one time to Werner Klemperer from Hogan's Heroes. She passed away in 2013. And we have Nick Tate as Durgo. Born in Australia, Tate has a long resume as an actor. You've seen him on Night Court and Hook, Murder, She Wrote, The X-Files, Jag, and many more. He also has built up quite a career as a voice actor. But who am I kidding? You absolutely know him as Alan Carter on Space 1999. Now, if for some reason you aren't familiar with him there, he was the cool pilot who would fly the one and only, one of the coolest spaceships ever made for sci-fi TV, the Eagle. Now, Captain Durgo is the captain of the shuttle Nenebek. Does that sound familiar? It should, because Nenebek is named after our old friend, Dr. Trek himself, Larry Nemecek. So in 1987 and throughout into the early 90s, Larry had been working on the Star Trek Next Generation Concordance. He was self-publishing these guides to the show that were just full of details. And naturally, the writing staff and the producers of Next Generation had copies of that as their own reference guide. Jerry Taylor happened to have a copy on her desk, saw his name, and thus named the shuttle Nenebek as a little tribute, a little tip of the hat to Larry Nemecek.
Did anybody tell Jerry that she misspelled it?
No, I don't believe they did. Maybe Larry did. If anybody was going to tell her, maybe Larry did.
we should ask him next time we see him.
Yeah, I agree.
Asteroids, deserts, radioactive waste. This episode should be exciting. Let John tell us all about it.
Prologue. On the way to Pentaris 3 to negotiate a dispute with miners, Captain Picard has some strong words to share with Wesley Crusher. You're late, you talk too much, and guess what? You're going to Starfleet Academy. For real, Picard is the master of the poker face, and Wesley is elated. For his last official duty on the Enterprise, Wesley will accompany Picard to Pentaris 3 because, wow, yeah, miners. Before we can get deeply into that, though, an urgent distress call comes in from Gamelon 5. Chairman Sonji there reports an unidentified ship entering their atmosphere and leaking dangerous radiation. No problem, Riker will take command of the Enterprise while Picard and Wesley go to Pentaris 3 in the shuttle sent to them by the miners. Meet Captain Durgo of the shuttle Nenebek. He brought his shuttle, and Geordi LaForge says that everything checks out. Wesley's like, oh, that's cute, and Durgo is all, she may not be much to look at, but she's got it where it counts, kid. The shuttle lifts off, and seriously, not 10 seconds into their trip, something goes terribly wrong, and the shuttle goes careening out of control. Act 1, prepare for impact. This old shuttle is not exactly up to slick Federation standards. Stuff is falling apart, sparks are flying. When they finally do hit dirt, the three find themselves on the brutally hot and dry Lambda Paz, a moon of Pentaris 3. There's no one around. And did I mention it's hot? Oh, and Durgo has no emergency rations, not even a replicator to whip up a few gallons of water. In orbit of Gamelon 5, the Enterprise finds that the dangerous radiation-leaking ship is a derelict, just some old radioactive garbage. Riker and his crew are there to help, though. Since the old vessel is already leaking all over the Gamelon atmosphere, they'll tow it to their nearby sun and let nature go to work. Still not easy. There's an asteroid belt in the way, and all that radiation is still dangerous to the Enterprise. Geordi has an idea. Link up a remote thruster on the garbage ship so they can stay at a safe distance. Oh, and Worf just got a message from the miners on Pentaris 3 notifying them that Captain Picard's shuttle didn't arrive. They'll have to work fast and head back to try to find the captain and Wesley. How are they doing? Well, Durgo isn't much use in a crisis like this, but Picard has decided the three should head toward the distant mountains. He leaves a crudely fashioned arrow in the ground to alert anyone who might find it where they've gone. While Durgo sneaks a drink from the flask he's hiding from the others, Wesley uses his tricorder, detects a faint bit of electromagnetic energy coming from those mountains. The three trudge on. Act 2, what do you know? Those mountains have a cave, and that cave seems to have been used by someone for something at some time. There are stairs carved in it and everything. Durgo drops his flask. It was alcohol. But Picard requisitions it not for drinking, but for the potential to use it as a coolant or disinfectant. Time to explore the cave. Beverly Crusher, meanwhile, is assembling her team to help those who were affected by the radiation on Gamelon 5. Deanna stops by to let her know about the latest with the missing shuttle. There is no news, only that Starfleet doesn't have anyone nearby, and they're hoping the other miners will assist in the search. Meanwhile, Geordi's idea about the thrusters was a good one, but as soon as they're ready to go, one of them flings itself off toward the planet below. They'll have to do this the old-fashioned way, with a tractor beam. And just as suspected, the Enterprise starts to soak up some of that sweet, sweet radiation, too. They're going to be delayed in looking for Picard's shuttle. In that cave, our three thirsty travelers find a fountain. Like a water-spewing fountain that is just as beautiful as anything at the Bellagio right about now. Durgo approaches, but a force field immediately surrounds the water and knocks him back. No matter, he pulls out a phaser and starts blasting. Picard is pretty sure that this is a bad idea, but Durgo persists even when two weird bursts of energy swoop in and aim right for him. One of those weird energy swooshes, in its fury, knocks loose large rocks in the cave right above Wesley. When Picard pushes him out of the way, the rocks land on the captain instead. Act 3. Picard is not in good shape. Well, you wouldn't be either if hundreds of pounds of rocks just fell on you, too. There are broken bones, what seems like a pretty severe concussion. Picard is doing his best to keep a brave face, but the prognosis is grim. Even Durgo is ready to pronounce him dead, but Wesley is grasping for any hope he can find. When Durgo steps away, literally stepping over Picard, Wesley hears some advice from his captain. This may be the end, and Wesley will need to stand up to Durgo, who, let's face it, has been a font of bad decision-making. Checking in with the Enterprise, the tractor beam is tractoring, but it's not quite enough power. They're only so close to the sun and need to step it up, but the radiation levels are increasing. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, back to the cave. Wesley has made a little progress on the protected water fountain. There is an electromagnetic field, and it increases whenever anyone gets close to it. He might be able to find the right frequency to halt it, but he'll need some time to science it up. Durgo points out something interesting to Wesley. That phaser he was using earlier is wrapped up in fiberglass. Space fiberglass. It's selenium fibers electrically deposited, and he figures it must have happened from that weird floaty, swooshing electric energy blob that showed up when he was shooting at the water fountain force field. So he's going to do it again, and wants Wesley's help. Wesley points out that this probably won't work, but it's a neat trick. Durgo fires at the fountain. Wesley sets up his phaser on a ledge, automatically firing in tandem. When the swooshing energy blob shows up, this did not go as planned. Now Durgo is wrapped up in space fiberglass, and that water is still off limits for them and for Picard. But at least Wesley won't have to stand up to Durgo now. Act 4. Even though Geordi was giving her all she's got with the engines, like the true miracle worker he is, he found a little more power in reserve, and now they're cooking, towing that poisonous derelict barge toward the sun. Oh, but the radiation is getting more dangerous, and that asteroid belt is... What? We made it? Okay, cut the thing loose and hightail it out of there to find the captain and the kid. Wesley breaks it to Picard that Durgo is dead, and Picard is doing his best impression of a dead man too, which kind of freaks out Wesley. Things are so dire that Wesley decides to remind him about the time way back in season 2 when they were both on a shuttle together headed to a starbase. Still nothing from Picard. Wesley is overcome with emotion, seeing his captain, his mentor, laying there in such bad shape. He opens up to him, telling the unresponsive Picard that everything Wesley has done has been to impress him. He won't let him die. Wesley promises that he'll think of a solution, and Picard will not die. Act 5. The Enterprise is rushing toward the area where the shuttle was last seen. Even though the miners had searched the nearby planets, they had not searched the moons. Lambda Paz, being the closest to the minute debris picked up, is where they will head. Picard is delirious. He doesn't know where he is, and naturally he's thirsty. Things are really getting dire, but Wesley is trying to occupy himself with a technological solution to get the water. More importantly, Picard is trying to share some last words with Wesley. He envies all that lies ahead for the young ensign, and he tells him to seek out Boothby, the groundskeeper at Starfleet Academy, one of the wisest men Picard has ever known. That, and Picard reminds Wesley that he has always been proud of him. Wesley faces the protected fountain one more time. He's hooked up the transponder from his communicator to the tricorder, and there's some teching tech all over the place. The phaser is fired, that swooping energy light shows up, but Wesley uses his tricorder to kind of stun it, taking a play from Dr. Venkman. It works. The light energy passes right through Wesley, the force field drops, and now there is nothing between Wesley and all that water. He collects some and starts slowly getting it to Picard. A little while later, Wesley is awakened by the sound of his mother's voice. She's there in the cave now with Data and an away team. They found the arrow Picard had left, and now it's time for all of them to beam back up to the Enterprise. Picard, on a stretcher, takes the opportunity to joke about Wesley's condition, and Wesley gives it right back to him. A hand is extended as Picard tells the ensign he will be missed. The end.
So they spend all this time trying to get at the water fountain, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Did they not see a wink of an eye?
Oh, well, maybe they did. Maybe they did see it. And they were like, that episode was great.
Yeah. That episode was great. What are you saying? Yeah, no, it reminded me of all the stuff that we've always said. I mean, first of all, it looks like water, but they haven't actually been able to get to it yet. And then, you know, it's like, you know, the Zaz or like whoever it was in Wink of an Eye. I can't remember which character it was, but, you know, like, you know, drank the water and died immediately.
Right.
No,
right.
It seemed like immediately to us,
well,
although for him it was a full lifetime, but you get the idea.
Right, right, yeah. Yeah, well, you know, if it looks like water, just go get the water.
Yeah.
You know, Wink of an Eye is just a distant memory.
It is indeed. Yeah. It is indeed.
Miners, Ken. Again, miners.
Yeah.
It's always something with the miners who are causing problems. I imagine that once you get past eating things and drinking things on mysterious planets in Starfleet Academy, there's a whole semester miners and what to do with them. There has to be. There really has to be.
The bane of the Starfleet officer's existence, miners.
Miners.
Like, and then like charts of all the different kinds of miners, and just stay away. Stay away from that kind. Stay away from that kind there. Hey, I got to say, bad week for Geordi.
Okay.
Didn't occur to me until you were actually going through this. He didn't set one thing up on the scow. He set up two, but one went flying off immediately. And also, as you pointed out, he checked over Durgo's ship, and he's like, well, this looks weird, but it's fine. And neither one was fine. I mean, just a bad week for your chief engineer entirely. Like, I wonder if like next week is going to be like
that we hope for.
He's going to be down, you know, in KP with us because he wasn't paying enough attention to engineering.
Right. So, warp core is fine. Antimatter containment just fine.
Right.
You go to warp 9.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Why not?
He's spending too much time on the holodeck, maybe, and not enough time actually in engineering. I love Picard. I mean, the opening is pretty fun. That he's distracted and he's ready to dress down Wesley because you know that Picard has thought about this moment for a long, long time.
Yeah.
I'm going to let Wesley know that he got into Starfleet Academy, but I'll show them. I'm not old, stick-in-the-mud, humorless Jean-Luc Picard. I've got a joke up my sleeve. And the first thing, Wesley runs in and he's out of breath. Oh, I've been working on a thing. And Picard says, I summoned you nearly 10 minutes ago. And I'm thinking, have you seen how big the ship is that you are the captain of? It is literally the size of a city. It is massive.
True, but
10 minutes is not bad.
They do have turbo lifts, though. And you know, one thing about the turbo lifts, turbo.
But sometimes you got to wait in line. Sometimes you got to wait in line.
Okay. Yeah. You know, you never really actually seem to have to. Star Trek 2 is the only time I remember anybody having to wait for the elevator.
Right, right. And then they made that a thing. You know? And I also thought, man, that crash sequence is pretty cool. You see the shuttle kind of lose control and then just planet coming right at you and then crash. And then that thing lands. It lands in exactly the right orientation. Yeah. I didn't see seatbelts anywhere. And Picard just like opens the hatch. He's like, well, I guess here we are. Picard's
good, man. What I actually couldn't figure out, because you're right, immediately after they look great, but then the very next scene, they're filthy.
Right.
I couldn't figure out what that was exactly. Like, roll around in the dry dirt to try to cool off? I don't know, because all of a sudden, Right. Not to, well, it is what it is. Wes is a little too gung-ho in this episode, especially like around that time. You know, like the whole, you know, when they're on the shuttle, he's like, don't you worry about Captain Picard, right? But then he goes like from gung-ho to, I think you actually mentioned it, to Luke in episode 4. Really just sort of like a, hey, he's gonna, we don't have to you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
Luke, by the way, was nobody's favorite character in episode 4, I'm fairly certain. And somebody's going to write to me and say, you're right. Okay, so then he goes
but
from...
you know why...
What?
Yeah. The reason he's not is because you've got a Han Solo.
Yeah.
And did I mention, you know, Nick Tate, Alan Carter, kind of the Han Solo of Space 1999. There's your connection.
Well, he's not the Han Solo of this, but, you know, he does have a
Not at all. Not in any shape or form.
Okay, so then he goes from being Luke to being Wesley. And it's really terrible, actually. There's a nice, like, almost Ben-Hur moment, you know, when Wes reaches down to help Durgo up, right? And Durgo, you know, maybe a little reticent, but goes ahead and takes his hand, and then they're standing face to face. He's like, and you were worried about how weak the captain is, or something like that. And it's like, wow, just push him, just punch him in the face. Durgo, who is like not a good character at this point, but really Wes is just like right down there on that level with him. Yeah, all of a sudden, I found that disappointing.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Okay, good, thank you.
Always interesting to me, we have an alien race like the people on Gamelon 5 who are advanced enough to know how to contact spaceships light years away. Like they know of the existence of spaceships light years away and how to contact them, but they don't have technology themselves to do things like, say, you know, knock a derelict spaceship out of the sky. Or other, you know, or maybe send up a robotic craft to put in thrusters or something like that.
There was, there was actually something that she said that reminded me a little bit of Memory Alpha. She said, "We're a peaceful planet. We have no way to defend ourselves." And there's a difference between being peaceful and being a sitting duck, right?
Well, right.
I mean, you can be a peaceful person, like, you know, but learn a little self-defense. Hopefully you never have to fight, but if you ever do have to fight, you know what to do.
Yep.
You're still a peaceful guy. It's just, you know, if somebody comes at you, at the very least, a little judo, you know, it's like just toss them aside using their own weight. So, kind of weird. The thing that I wondered, the other thing I wondered about her, in addition to the whole we're peaceful so we don't, I wondered if they were like Planet Zoidberg. You know, with the thing hanging down in front of their face, like from Futurama.
Yes.
Yes. Every time she was on screen, I kept thinking, why not Zoidberg? That's all.
Nice. Yeah, well, see, I also thought that, you know, speaking of the technology that's going around, so the Enterprise got contacted from Gamelon 5, presumably a long way away.
Okay.
They are able to contact the miners at Pintaris 3 and say, hey, the shuttle didn't show up. Well, they got the contact first, but then they were able to radio back and say, well, can you look around And the miners are like, oh, yeah, I guess that's what we do. I was thinking maybe the comm badges that Wesley and Picard are wearing could contact the miners who are nearby.
Huh.
You know, they're maybe only a planet away.
Yeah. It would have ended the show maybe a little early, though.
I'm just, well,
Act
maybe
2.
that's okay.
Oh, they've gotten in touch. Okay. So Act 3, they're waiting. Act 4, they're still waiting. Act 5. Hey, look, it's those guys.
We just got to keep knocking shuttles out of the sky to make it, you know, exciting. Yeah. I was thinking, couldn't you tow the derelict spaceship? See, this is bad because now I'm just thinking of ways to end the episode early.
Yeah, you are.
Now that you mentioned it. Yeah, tow the derelict spaceship briefly and then just get out of the way.
Well, no, they couldn't because they had to guide it through the asteroid belt.
Well, it's funny you should mention that.
Okay.
Because it looks good on film, but from what I understand, asteroids really aren't all that close together. And even if they were, I imagine if you had, say, like a super intelligent android on board that could plot out a path, he could say, like, okay, go now. Don't worry, it's on its way. Let's get out of here.
Well, except we're given to think that they have to guide it through the asteroids. Now, granted, they ended up only taking it through a straight line through the asteroids. I guess the question I have, though, is who cares if it gets caught up in the asteroid belt? Because the asteroid belt's a belt of asteroids, right?
Right, so well, but then you might have a bunch of radioactive, garbage-filled asteroids making their way toward your planet.
Did we have other plans for those asteroids? Well, no, wait a minute. The asteroid belt isn't making its way to the planet, though. No,
but if you have debris that could make its way at one point or another. I mean, again, it's all extremely unlikely.
It seems a little. It was very strange, actually, yes, how easily they got through the asteroid belt. Because the Enterprise... Well, no, I guess the Enterprise was smaller, wasn't it, than the Scow? Or was it?
Well, it was, but again, you think about it, all they did was point a straight line through a hole in the asteroid belt, which Data probably could have seen from a very far distance and said, like, oh, okay, well, we need to pull it starting now for this distance at this force, and then get out of the way. No, because it will go through that giant gaping hole in the asteroid belt. And I heard it described at one point that asteroids in an asteroid belt are kind of like airplanes in the sky. Okay. Like if you're in an airplane, and maybe once every now and then you look out and way off in the distance you see another airplane.
Yeah.
That's kind of like how an asteroid belt is. The distances are so vast that you may just happen to see another one, close enough by to be in visual range. But because the spaces we're talking about are so huge, it's not like falling in a ball pit at a Chuck E. Cheese where they're just everywhere.
Yes. Yeah. Wow, that's a visual.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so I guess as long as we're doing this whole thing, then why not just attack a shuttle on the end of the scow?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Run it by remote control or
on remote. Yeah.
Yep. Something like that, maybe. Would have been a little bit easier. Of course, you lose the shuttle at that point. What?
We're thinking us out of this.
Is that what we're doing?
That's what Wesley did.
That's what Wesley did,
was going to think us out of this.
Yeah.
So you're going to think us out of this.
Well, no, I'm just going to think of other ways that... It's easy 27 years later, though, or however many, to go back and go, oh, you know what they should have done? That's just really a waste of time.
It is, yeah. So I guess it's our cue to move on.
Asteroids, deserts, radioactive waste. This episode could have been exciting. Let us see what John and Ken can pull out of it.
So I thought there was an interesting idea about command here. Picard tells Crusher that he's going to have to stand up to Durgo. Now, my assumption was that Wes was going to have to stand up to Durgo because Durgo was going to try to take over. He was going to try to take control. And I guess in this hierarchy, Wes would actually outrank Durgo, even though they're not the same organization or whatever. I assume the whole thing was so that Wes wouldn't lose control of the situation, sort of like Spock did in Galileo 7. But the other reason I think it turns out is so that the people under him wouldn't die, or so that other people wouldn't die. He doesn't have a strong enough personality to control Durgo, and so Durgo buys it, which is different, because originally I thought Picard was just going to say, look, Durgo's going to try to push you around. I think Picard might have actually been telling him, you need to be strong so that everybody survives, not just you need to be strong so that you're not pushed around, which I found relatively interesting. It's really not Wes's situation to command, so maybe I'm reading too much into that. But Durgo wasn't really interested in lording it over Wesley. I mean, Durgo had an idea. Wes thought it was a dumb idea. If Wes had actually been able to stand up to Durgo, then Durgo would have lived through the dumb idea, right?
Yeah.
Instead, though...
That'll show Durgo.
Well, it will. It will indeed. Yes, he's all nice and bubble-wrapped, ready to be sent off someplace else.
Right.
Sorry, I was curious what that whole thing was. It was fairly horrific, though, when you just kind of see his face through that plexiglass, whatever.
Yeah, that was kind of neat.
It was kind of scary.
Yeah, no, that's sort of the problem with it. I mean, when Starfleet jumps into a situation where it's, you know, they're not walking into a Starfleet or a Federation place. They're walking into a planet with miners, and the miners probably couldn't care less who was there, you know, what the command structure is within that. Here's just a guy to come help negotiate. And then certainly some kid who's an ensign doesn't outrank anybody. He's just the kid. So Durgo is probably going to do whatever he pleases no matter what, whether it's Picard in command or Wesley in command. But I did like that scene with Picard kind of reasoning with Durgo after Wesley had his outburst when they first crashed. Mm-hmm. Wesley's tactic was like, hey, you better listen because he's the captain.
Right.
But Picard's follow-up is great. He said, hey, look, you're a great pilot, even though you just wrecked. You know, right. Let's butter him up with a lie.
Right.
Okay. So, hey, you're a great pilot, and your input is valuable. If you've got better input right now than walking to the mountains, I'd love to hear it. Oh, nothing? Okay, cool. We're going to go to the mountains then. So the command style was nice to see. Maybe Wesley could have learned something from that. But ultimately, Durgo is a guy who's going to throw chain of command right out the window. You know, he just happened to be in the situation that he was in. But I did wonder about Wesley as a leader. Wesley as an adult, because we've seen Wesley grow up from the awkward 15-year-old to maybe the less awkward 17-year-old here, 18-year-old here, about to head off to the academy. And I did wonder by the end of it, what did he learn? And obviously we have our section at the end of the show. We'll try to figure out what the morals, meaning, messages are. But I did wonder, what did Wesley actually pick up from the experience? He has faced death before. He was confronted with the death of his father, and not just his father, but others on the Enterprise, kind of the reality of life on the Enterprise. But he still kind of seems immature here. And he didn't actually have the opportunity to step up and face down Durgo. He got lucky that Durgo got killed by the space whoosh. You know,
right?
And I wonder then, does this tell us anything about how he'll be at the academy? Because he has these kind of outbursts, and he has this sort of, I don't know. I don't know that the kid's handling stress too well. We shouldn't expect too much out of him. He's not an adult necessarily here, but I wondered about his ability to face another really stressful situation, because this was a tough one. And he potentially is going to watch his captain and his mentor die, and he's kind of losing it, which may be very realistic, and it may be very realistic for a 17, 18-year-old. But maybe I expected that this is the one where he does actually face the test of having to stand up to a guy like Durgo and not be the guy at the beginning of the episode who sort of shouts him down, but learn something that is a little more Picard-like in being able to reason with him. Because that was the nice thing to see Picard come in. And I looked at that one moment and thought, okay, there's a lesson in command. Mm-hmm. There's a lesson in reason and not being like Wesley. at that point. I thought in the episode that we didn't spend too much time on Picard dying necessarily, maybe because the audience would never believe that Picard would actually die here and in this way. Still, though, there was some good discussion with Wesley. And I wondered if Picard got out everything that he wanted to express to Wesley. It was a nice moment for him to say that he was always proud of him. I wondered maybe some message to get back to Beverly. In the times that we've seen Beverly maybe try to open up to Picard, and Picard maybe under the influence of, well, other beings try to express something to Beverly. But I thought that maybe these were other things that would have come out at the moment.
I don't know, though. It might be weird if, like, you know, Wes has never... I mean, I don't think Wes has ever actually seen whatever bond it is that exists between Picard and Dr. Crusher. So it might be weird if, like, one of the last things he hears from his mentor is, "Oh, by the way, tell your mom for me." You know? That'd be kind of strange. I think Picard at that point would probably assume that there was an unspoken whatever that they both recognize. I don't think he would, you know, saddle the 17-year-old with. But be sure when you tell her that I wasn't, you know, tell her I was thinking of her right at the end. Why? Why are you thinking of my mom?
I think maybe let's just make it as completely uncomfortable for Wesley as we possibly can. You know, I don't know. I was just thinking that, you know, I wanted to have a lot more to say about those moments between Wesley and Picard. But then I thought, well, the episode really isn't about death or dying or last words or anything like that. It's really about Wesley stepping up. And then I feel like, well, Wesley stepping up, he didn't really have to do because he didn't necessarily learn a lesson in command. Like I said, Durgo got killed right from underneath him.
Right.
And then he had to go attack the tech to make the thing work. I do think we get to a little bit contemplate who Picard is when he's facing death, if only for a moment. It's stoic and thoughtful and still kind and open-hearted to Wesley, which I think are all the qualities that we thought it would be anyway. You know, which is fine.
I think you're leaving out the part, though. Honestly, the best part of the whole episode to me is when Picard starts to cry and says that he envies Wesley because, you know, his adventure is just beginning. I mean, it's actually an interesting play on words with the whole final mission because, you know, we assume, well, it's your final mission on the Enterprise, you're going to come with me. But of course, then Picard is laying there dying. And so it actually could have been his final mission. That's a cute little juxtaposition, too, with, wow, you know, as I lay here dying, you're just beginning. Except, of course, we know that Picard's not going to die. I mean, that's what makes that kind of difficult. I mean, putting him in peril is just silly. Because he's not Guy from Galaxy Quest. And though he wears a red shirts don't mean what they used to. Yeah. I mean, you know, putting Picard in peril is like, oh, okay, well, let's see, how many more minutes do we have? So I'm going to guess he's like 6 more minutes in peril, and then it'll be fine. So I don't know. You know, talking about Durgo too, or as you were a moment ago, it's weird to me that there is no growth from that character. Zero. Yeah. I mean, we don't have like we talked about what was in the most toys? I cannot remember the woman's name.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry that I'm blanking on it, but yes, of course.
Yeah. We actually saw a little bit of growth from her. Data. Yeah, exactly. I mean, she had been. It seemed at first like maybe she was a bad guy in cahoots with Fajo, and then I said it seems possible actually that she is a victim of abuse. And so that sort of opens up a little bit more about her character. And then when she actually comes to help Data, okay, that opens up even more about her character. And Durgo is the same. He's like one note, start to finish. He is a bad guy. He's a rapscallion. Except rapscallions, you kind of like them still, right? Yeah. Durgo's just a jerk, like start to finish. It was weird to me that we had a character who was like central to this whole thing. For whom or from whom we got absolutely nothing redeeming whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, and unfortunately, that reflects on Wesley. Because, like I said, Wesley doesn't get to have that growth moment of, I'm going to step up to command.
Right.
He's robbed of that because there's nothing of Durgo other than standing in the way of the fiberglass dispenser.
I like that.
Yeah. I was reminded of some references in TOS. I was thinking, of course, of the miners in Mudd's Women, because really those guys were stereotypes. They're just these kind of rough around the edges, and they're just kind of, they're stuck in the 20th century, even if that was the 23rd century.
Yeah.
We even had a hint of that in Devil in the Dark, where these rough and tumble guys from Mudd's Women or Devil in the Dark, they just can't see the obvious answers in front of them. They can't take good advice. And again, I thought to expand that a bit for all the social progress that Star Trek shows us, there is this hint of Starfleet elitism. They know the answers, and more importantly, they have the resources that no one else does. Durgo says it when they get to the planet, because Picard's like, what, you don't even have a replicator? You don't even have rations? Come on. And he's like, yeah, because this is not a starship. You guys have that stuff. We don't have that stuff.
No, well, you're conflating a couple of things. It was actually, again, it's one of the shortcomings of Wesley in this, when they're trying to figure out, when Picard says, scan for Class M planets. And Wes says, this data board looks like it's about 100 years old.
Yeah,
and that's when
sure
Durgo
does.
says we don't have the resources. Durgo, I don't know. I was actually kind of weirded out by Picard saying you don't have emergency supplies, because I'm thinking it's just a matter of how long it's going to take you to die in space, right? Like, well, you don't have water.
Yeah,
because if you lose propulsion, but you got water, well, then you got like an extra week.
Exactly.
I thought that Picard was actually being a little hard on him. Of course, he should have known he was going to crash on a desert planet.
Oh, totally.
Except for the part where there's absolutely no way that he could know that. We have not talked at all about the B plot, except for the part where we talked about the fact that it really was like a red letter day for Geordi.
Yeah. Right.
I'm curious about the whole eco message thing, because it seems like there's an ecological message here, except I think we've talked about one of these before, where it's like, okay, so don't throw your radioactive waste into space, because somebody else is going to have to clean that up.
Yeah.
There's no I was kind of bothered by the whole B plot, because obviously they're going to succeed. Right? Because they have to succeed so they can go get Picard. Because obviously nobody else is going to be able to save Picard. It's going to have to be these guys. They're going to have to do that, because we have to have that touching moment at the end, which means they have to be able to dispose of the garbage scow, which means everything that happens in Acts 2, 3, and 4, it's just like, it's just wasting time, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it truly is.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Well, I thought the ecological idea, it is an interesting one. But like you point out, there's no exploration of how it came to this point, or who did it, or what a realistic solution would be for the people below. Fortunately, you have this super advanced starship that just happens to be within shouting distance to say, hey, come fix this for us.
Right.
I like the idea of shooting toxic waste into space, but specifically aimed directly at the sun.
Yeah.
Even if it would take years to get there from our own perspective, and would bear an enormous material cost. Well, those are just things to figure out. But a good idea, very good idea. We should hold on to that one.
I will say that one thing, though. You say there's no obvious solution for the people, that they could do themselves. You're wrong. They burrow under the ground. They expand their mind capabilities. And, then they start catching people to put in their zoo.
Asteroids, deserts, radioactive waste. This episode. Seriously. This episode.
I can't remember the last time that we tipped our hand so much during an episode. How we felt about the episode. I honestly thought maybe we were going to quit halfway through this. Once I realized, we haven't said like two nice things, I don't think. But let's go ahead and do it just for the sake of doing it. It's time now to figure out the messages, morals, and meanings of the episode and whether or not the whole thing holds up. Final mission, John. Does this episode hold up as far as you're concerned?
You know that I love Will, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we had such a great conversation with him, and every now and then I've had other conversations. I just think he's a hell of a guy, and I feel like he has been unfairly dumped on for Next Gen, for things that are just completely and utterly not his doing, not his fault. That said, I don't think he would act the role the same way that he did here. People change a lot. Actors certainly change a lot as they mature, and you're a different actor at 18 than you are an actor at 30 or 40 or whatever. Even for Wesley, there is an earnestness and immaturity that we didn't see before. It just plays very strangely. I don't really think that part works well here. It's one thing for a kid to be scared and have to go through the kind of trial we see here. Something else, though, to see the boy mature and put on his adult face. I would have preferred to have seen that, So I feel like there was a missed opportunity with this episode to, like I said, see the moment that Wesley takes command, that he is challenged and has to do something. Because what we end up with is him having to find the technological answer, so he finds it and then he's done.
Yeah.
But that's really kind of it. The B plot stinks of let's get them out of the way. That really is all that's there. So this is an episode where the heart is completely in the right place. The idea of having these moments for Wesley and Picard, the idea of trying to challenge Wesley, and just from a production point of view, to give him a farewell, give him a send-off, where we could also bring him back. Heart's totally in the right place. It just doesn't hold up like it should. It really doesn't come together like it should. So, unfortunately, I cannot give this one a pass. What about you?
It's neat to be outside.
Sure.
That place you're talking about. The stuff with the planet and the garbage scow felt like padding, like I said earlier. I mean, the real story is with Picard and Crusher. And yeah, there's stuff that's happening on the Enterprise. Like we're, kind of worried about Beverly, worried about Wes, but we don't really get enough of a thing with that. It's kind of a Star Trek thing to have a Sentinel about which we get no explanation. It's kind of an original series thing almost. We know nothing about this thing, but there it is, and it still has to be dealt with. But, we've done so much now where we're doing like real story that you got to give me something about that Sentinel thing. You can't just have it there and then can't just have it so easily defeated. I mean, why was it there? Where was that water coming from? Where was that water going? There's too much about it. It's just like it's too Deus Ex Machina in a way. It's like, oh, there's water, but we can't get at the water, and don't ask me why the water's there or how it got there or what it is that's protecting it. And shh, okay. What makes this episode work in any respect is the relationship between Picard and Crusher. But then when you turn it into just being Crusher, it really starts to weaken. No, I don't think it works. I was actually almost willing to say I kind of want to just give it enough, but the only reason I want to do that is for the Picard, really for the Picard part. I mean, I want to even say for the Picard and Wesley part. I mean, again, when Picard has that moment where he cries and he says, "I so envy you," I mean, that to me was an incredible moment. But, I mean, you sort of expect incredible moments from Patrick Stewart, I suppose. And so, I mean, that's not going to be enough to really enough to carry it. Same time, I actually did think there were messages, but, or at least things I could pull out of it. But let's go with you first. What messages do you see coming from this episode?
Well, I don't think this is a heavy, heavy message episode. I mean, let's talk about that line about Picard having envy for Wesley. It's an interesting choice of words. I don't think there's the sound at all of any regret in Picard's voice as he thinks he's dying. But there is this kind of sweet moment of envy.
Yeah.
You know, you're just at the beginning of the adventure. And I think that's what's really nice about it, and that's what's nice about his choice of how to deliver that line. So if I pulled a message just out of that, I would say it's don't live with regret and don't miss opportunity. Picard has had a very full life. He may envy the idea that he remembers it, clearly he remembers himself at this young age, starting at the academy, starting all these things, but he has been through so much and had so many great adventures and hopefully enjoyed his life, even though we've had glimpses into maybe Picard's troubled personal life from time to time, you know. So maybe there is a little bit of a hint of the things that he could have or would have done differently. But I don't get that sound of regret, at least not at any kind of deep level there. It's just the idea that he got to do it. Picard got to do it and have this great life and have these great adventures. And if it ends there, then so be it. So if now he's sort of passing the torch to Wesley to say, you get to go do all these things, so embrace it and enjoy it and savor every minute of it. So maybe that's what I'll pull out of that moment. And surely there are more. What about you?
Well, I mean, right at the very beginning, right in Act 1, there's the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, you know, thing. They've got this whole planet that, you know, is going to be littered with radiation, and what Riker really wants to do is go save Picard, and what Dr. Crusher really wants is for him to go save Wesley. But, you know, that's only 3 people. If we even care about Durgo, and who knows if we do. But that's only 3 people, and there's this whole other planet they have to take care of first. So, I mean, that's there. There is folly in what Durgo does, and it's not. This is not even part of Durgo being a bad guy, but it's a great line. Enough talking, enough thinking. It's time to do something. Well, no.
No.
I mean, go ahead and do something if you want to, but think about it and talk it over first. I mean, it's like that thing I loved when Data said to Picard, do you want to take us out of orbit? And Picard says, and go where? Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. You don't just do something for the sake of doing something. Even though we didn't get to see him really thinking about it, even though we didn't get to see why, I mean, you could sort of say the whole never, never, never give up kind of thing. I mean, he's going to think his way out of it. He's going to think them out of it. And he does. I kind of just wish it hadn't been so plastered on there. Like, you know, well, let's really quickly take care of this. And there seems to be an inherent eco message, but again, not really.
Right. Yeah, I think that was
radioactive waste is bad. Okay, well, I agree with you. Radioactive waste is bad, but nobody in this episode created the radioactive waste, and whoever created the radioactive waste didn't have to clean it up. So really, you're not actually making a case for, you know, take care of the ecology or the environment, because, as I say, if you don't, somebody else is going to have to take care of it. It's like, well, that actually sounds okay to me.
Yeah.
that seems fine. I'm not sure who's learning the lesson there. So, I don't know. It's, I mean, they're fine, but they're all tacked on. I mean, it's sort of like, I don't even know if those messages were intended to be there, or if it's just like in part of storytelling, you can maybe pick out a message or two. So.
No, well, you know, so far in season 4, we've had some great excursions into the personal lives of these characters.
Yes.
And certainly some of the high points there being an episode like Family, where you really dig deeply into that. And I like having that thread throughout. So here's an episode where they tried to balance out some of the action equation with that look at a character. Let's give a little deeper look at Wesley. But I feel like they dropped the ball, and that's what I've said before, where these particular adult writers didn't really know how to write a kid. And we're using the term kid loosely here. He's 18. He's going off to the academy. But they didn't really know how to write him. And this was an opportunity to have him truly grow and really get something out of him. But what we got out of him was whiny kid solves the problem with technology, survives to see another day. You know?
Yeah.
So the messages there aren't really the messages there. That's what's frustrating. You know, because there was an opportunity to maybe have a message there, or to just really see some deeper, more introspective character growth. So that's the trouble with this episode.
Well, that's one of the troubles with this episode. Hey, you know, it's interesting, though. It's been a long time since both you and I were like, yeah, no.
Right.
And so here we are. So how far into season 4 are we? And we got to that. So, yeah, mostly it's been a win. Oh, mostly it's been a win. And I just saw what the next episode is. I should have known. See, that would have been funny if I'd... Mission Log is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Executive producer Rod Roddenberry. You can find out more at roddenberry.com. For more exciting Star Trek podcasts, be sure to check out Trek FM. That is trek.fm. And for the latest in Star Trek news and discussion, be sure to visit trekmovie.com.
Next week, The Loss.
Some of the music for Mission Log provided by Warp 11, online at warp11.com, and from the album Messages by Key Theory, free to download at kitheory.com. I am sorry to be that computer. But why did Durgo not drill a hole from the side under the fountain? And transmission.